Scientists have found a lot of solutions to some of the world's hardest problems, but they still don't have every answer. And that doesn't only apply to the problems we face today, but also to some of the weirdest finds from the past. Archaeologists often rely on scientists when they can't make sense of what they find, but sometimes even science falls short. And everything you are about to see in this video is an archaeological mystery that scientists still can't understand. Number 15. The 300-million-year-old bolt. Well, when you look at it first, it doesn't look like much. Just a piece of metal, something you'd usually throw away. But this particular object was discovered embedded deep inside a rock in Russia, and that rock has been dated to around 300 million years old. So, would you still throw it away? Nah. And the bolt isn't sitting loosely inside. The stone has formed around it, meaning it had to be there when the rock solidified. If that's true, then the object itself would have to be just as old. That places it long before humans, long before dinosaurs even existed. Similar finds have been reported in other parts of the world too, objects resembling screws or gears trapped in ancient stone. Scientists often explain them away as natural formations or fossil patterns. And sometimes, that might be true. But in cases like this, the resemblance is impossible to ignore. It leaves an uncomfortable question hanging. Are we missing something about our own history? Number 14. Leonite statue from Dodon. Back in 2022, a statue showed up in Paris that didn't just blend into the museum crowd. It stood there, nearly 7 feet tall, carved from sandstone, with a presence that felt intentional. The kind that makes you stop for a second longer than usual. It had bare chest, strong posture, and nothing exaggerated, yet it carries a quiet authority. When you see it first, you might mistake it for something Egyptian or Greek, but that's not where it comes from. This figure traces back to the Leonite kingdom, centered around the ancient city of Dodon in Arabia. That place once thrived as a trade hub for over 1,000 years. Historians often describe the Leonites as peaceful, building influence through commerce rather than conflict. Still, for a civilization that lasted that long, we know surprisingly little about how they actually lived. That's what makes this statue more than just stone. It feels like a fragment of a story we're still trying to piece together. On number 13, the lost city of Natunia. Not every archaeological discovery starts with a breakthrough. They start with someone finally taking a closer look. A good one. That's what happened in Iraqi Kurdistan when archaeologists began properly surveying a mountain fortress known as Rabbana Merkuli. People already knew it was there, but no one had really studied it in depth. Then the digging began, and things began to shift. After a few weeks, a possibility emerged that changed all. This site might actually be the lost city of Natunia, a place that, until now, only existed on a handful of ancient coins. That's all historians had to go on. A name, stamped into metal over 2,000 years ago. What makes this more convincing is what they've found at the site. Structures that look like barracks, and a religious complex possibly linked to the goddess Anahita. There's even a carved relief that looks like known depictions of a local ruler. It's not confirmed yet, but for once, the pieces are starting to line up. Number 12. Devil's Corkscrews. Now this one is an old story. Back in 1891, American geologist Dr. Irwin H. Barber was called out to examine a set of strange spiral rock formations that were discovered in Nebraska. At first sight, they looked almost artificial, twisting deep into the ground like giant screws. He spent years studying them, trying to understand their purpose, but never reached a solid answer. And honestly, we're still stuck on that same question today. The structures are packed with sand, while the pale material forming their outer walls still hasn't been clearly identified. What made the whole thing even more unsettling was what Barber found at the bottom of many of them. Dead rodents. That discovery pushed local ranchers to give them a name that stuck: Devil's Corkscrews. Scientists later suggested they might have been burrows made by an extinct animal called paleocastor, something like an ancient beaver. Maybe they dug these spirals for shelter or hunting. It sounds strange, but right now, it's the closest explanation we have. Number 11. The Giants of Monte Prama. Nobody can say much with confidence about the giants of Monte Prama, except one simple fact. They're real. We mean, everything else about them feels like educated guessing. The leading idea points to the Nuragic civilization of Sardinia, active between 1800 and 200 BCE, before the Romans pushed them aside. What makes it harder is how little they left behind. There are no detailed writings, and barely any mention from other cultures. Just stone. And these statues might be their finest work. They surfaced in 1974 near Cabras, scattered and broken, but still impossible to ignore. What grabs you instantly are those strange, circular eyes, almost mechanical, nothing like typical ancient art. Tombs nearby suggest they could have stood as guardians for the dead, watching over something long forgotten. But even that feels like a stretch. Every explanation comes with doubt attached. That's the frustrating part. These figures stand right in front of us, yet somehow they keep their story completely out of reach. Number 10. The Terracotta Army Mystery. China's Terracotta Army is often described as one of the greatest archaeological finds ever made. Thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, each with unique features, were buried to guard Emperor Qin in the afterlife. The official timeline places them at over 2,200 years old. But not everyone agrees with that story. When Western researchers were finally allowed to study the figures more closely, some findings raised eyebrows. The weapons held by the soldiers showed signs of chromium coating, a technique that, according to modern records, wasn't developed until the 20th century. That alone creates a problem. Either ancient craftsmen had knowledge far ahead of their time, or something about the timeline isn't quite right. There's no easy answer here. Suggesting the army is modern would challenge decades of accepted history. But accepting the alternative means acknowledging technology that shouldn't have existed back then. But no matter how many explanations there are, it still leaves more questions than answers. Number 9. The Toei stone balls. They look simple at first. Small enough to sit in your palm, nothing intimidating about them. But the longer you look, the stranger they get. Well, like seriously. These carved stone balls from Scotland aren't random objects. Each one is carefully shaped and then covered in raised knobs, patterns, and designs that feel deliberate. People have been finding them since the 1800s, and surprisingly, new ones still turn up even now. Most are a few inches wide, made from common stone like granite or sandstone. But their age is where things shift. Some date back over 5,000 years. And yet, no one can explain what they were for. Are they some kind of weapons, tools, or status symbols? Well, even that odd idea that they were something like a craftsman's portfolio. Every theory sounds possible, and also completely unconvincing. That's what makes them frustrating. They're too detailed to be meaningless, too consistent to be random, and too common to be ignored. And still, after all this time, they refuse to explain themselves. Number 8. The Grauball Man. It was found in a Danish peat bog in 1952, and honestly, it looks less like a relic and more like someone who could open his eyes at any moment. His skin, hair, and even his fingernails are still eerily intact despite being over 2,000 years old. The bog preserved him so perfectly that his final moments feel almost close enough to touch. The workers who found him weren't amazed at first. They were terrified. Then seeing a human face staring back from the mud wasn't something they expected. But over time, it became clear just how extraordinary the discovery really was. Closer examination revealed something darker. His throat had been cut, suggesting he wasn't buried naturally, but sacrificed. Many believe he was part of a ritual offering, though no one knows exactly why. Even his reddish hair, once likely blonde, changed because of the chemicals in the bog. Somehow, the environment protected him better than the people around him ever did. Number 7. Bactrian lead object. Have you ever looked at something and instantly felt like, well, this isn't just random? That's what this object does. It's this solid, circular piece from the Bactrian region, around 5,000 years old. There's a hole at the top, and across the surface, 6 carved shapes, and almost like crosses, laid out with this weirdly clean symmetry. Now, the official idea? It might have been a weight, something to pin down tents or keep materials from flying off in strong wind. The hole makes that believable. But here's the thing. If it's just a weight, why does it look like that? Well, because nobody spends time carving neat patterns into something that's supposed to sit in dirt and do a boring job. That kind of effort usually means something mattered, either symbolically or culturally. And that's where it stops feeling simple. Maybe it did have a basic use, or maybe that was just one part of it, and the rest meant something we just don't get anymore. Either way, it doesn't feel like a throwaway object. It feels like something someone actually cared about. At number 6, Inca Golden Star Map from Coricancha. There's a gold artifact tied to the Inca that people still can't quite agree on. It was found near Coricancha, a temple in Cusco that once shimmered with gold before it was stripped during the Spanish conquest. The piece itself is covered with markings, shapes that seem to point toward the sky. Some researchers believe it's a map, possibly charting stars like the Southern Cross and even parts of the Milky Way. That alone would be impressive, but the details don't fully line up in a way we can confidently read. That's where interpretation starts to drift. Inca traditions speak of Viracocha, a creator figure said to have come from beyond the heavens. Some believe the artifact reflects that story, tracing a path through the stars. Others see it as symbolic. Either way, it's one of those pieces that feels like it's saying something crucial, just not in a language we fully understand yet. Number 5. Great Zimbabwe. At one point, people refused to believe this place was built by the very people who lived there. That says more about history than it does about the structure itself. Great Zimbabwe stands as the largest ancient ruin south of the Sahara, and it's impossible to ignore once you see it. There are massive stone walls, some reaching over 30 feet high, all carefully stacked without mortar. Just stone on stone, perfectly balanced. It once served as a major center of trade, connecting regions far beyond what many expected at the time. For years, outsiders tried to credit its construction to distant civilizations like the Egyptians or Phoenicians. That idea didn't hold. Modern research made it clear. The ancestors of the Shona people built it. But even with that settled, the real questions remain. Why was it built this way? What was the true purpose of structures like the conical tower? And why was it eventually abandoned? The place answers one question, then quietly replaces it with 3 more. So, do you have any theory about it? Number 4. Seahenge. For centuries, no one knew it was there. Then in 1998, shifting sands along a beach in Norfolk revealed something that shouldn't have survived as long as it did. Wooden posts arranged in a circle, with an inverted tree stump placed at the center. The structure quickly became known as Seahenge, though the name itself doesn't really explain much. Dating showed it was around 4,000 years old, which makes its preservation even more surprising given its location. At the time it was built, the area would have been a salt marsh, not an open coastline like today. That detail matters because it changes how the site might have been used. Some believe it had a ritual purpose, possibly tied to burial or ceremony, and some think it served a more symbolic role connected to nature or cycles of life. What stands out is the deliberate placement. Nothing about it feels accidental. Someone built this with intention, even if that intention hasn't fully carried through time. Number 3. Scottish crannogs. Building an island sounds like something that belongs in games, not something people were doing thousands of years ago. But across Scotland, it's a reality. Crannogs are artificial islands, carefully constructed by piling stone and timber into shallow water until the surface rises above it. For a long time, historians believed these structures dated back to the Iron Age. Then radiocarbon testing changed that idea completely. Some of them turned out to be far older, around 5,500 years old. That pushes their origin deep into the Neolithic period, which makes the whole thing harder to process. Moving that amount of material, organizing labor, transporting everything by boat, it takes planning, skill, and time. These weren't temporary shelters. They were intentional, built to last. The reason behind them still isn't fully clear. Protection, isolation, status. Each explanation has its place, but none of them feels complete on its own. What's certain is this: the people who built them knew exactly what they were doing. Number 2. Sehuite monolith. At a glance, the stone looks chaotic. Carvings scattered across its surface, lines running in different directions, small depressions, steps that don't seem to lead anywhere. It sits in Peru, massive and quiet, with no clear explanation attached to it. The Sehuite monolith doesn't follow a pattern that's easy to recognize, and that's part of the problem. Some have suggested it might be a kind of model, perhaps a representation of water systems or landscapes. That idea comes from the way channels and grooves are carved into the stone, almost as if something was meant to flow through them. But there's no solid proof. Another strange detail is the lack of clear tool marks. For something this detailed, you'd expect obvious signs of chiseling or shaping, yet those signs aren't easy to spot. It gives the impression of careful work, but the method behind it remains unclear. Whatever its goal was, it doesn't translate easily into modern understanding. Number 1. The Pictish blacksmith's imprint. For a civilization that existed for over 1,000 years, the Picts left behind surprisingly little. And that's what makes every small discovery feel important. One such find came from the island of Rousset, where archaeologists uncovered something unusually personal. Pressed into stone were the handprints and knee marks of a blacksmith who lived around 1,500 years ago. It's not a grand monument or a massive structure, just the quiet trace of someone at work. The space itself was cramped, likely dimly lit except for the glow of heated metal. That darkness might not have been accidental. It could have helped the smith judge temperature more accurately while working. There's something grounding about it. Not a king, just a person doing their craft. And yet that simple imprint manages to bring us closer to a life we barely understand at all. But who was this blacksmith and what happened to him is a question no one can solve. Well, that's it from us. Like and subscribe, and be sure to check out our previous videos. We'll see you soon.